views and opinions expressed by callers, guests, and hosts do not necessarily reflect those of the Black Talk Radio Network and Black Talk Media Project. Black Talk Radio is new black media for the new millennium.
Just lift your eyes up, let your wise rise up. See the signs of the times, if it's time, rise up, rise up. When death and hell dwell among all God's people, when those we chose and trusted have become completely corrupted and inherently evil, when the feast that feeds you starves our father's children, when snuff, porn, and pedo forms begin to get top billing, rise up. When famine claims millions, when justice gives blind eyes to billions, when the Lord's anger is no longer feared, if his protection is gone and your enemies are near, if you've seen the seas spill over and the mountains shake, break, and fall, if the moon ever turns blood red and you can't see the sun at all, rise up, no matter if the prize is high.
And welcome to New Abolitionist Radio on the Black Talk Radio Network, a program that seeks to educate, inform, and agitate on the issue of 21st century legalized slavery, hosted by social activist and spoken word poet Max Parthas, with New Abolitionists and actionist Yohanan Elia and Black Talk Media Project founder Scotty Reid. On this program, we discuss recent news on legalized 21st century slavery and human trafficking, along with projects and people who help combat it. Today is the June 7th, 2017 broadcast of New Abolitionist Radio, our last broadcast before our anniversary date of 6/13. We would like to think that we've made a real impact and a difference in agitating, supporting, and advancing the abolitionist narratives and cause, the cause of freedom from legalized slavery and persecution. Feel free to call in tonight and let us know what you think. 866-510-9025. On this date in history, June 7, 1712, Pennsylvania freed all slaves living in the colony over 150 years before the Emancipation Proclamation. However, by an act of Queen Anne on February 20th, 1713, the decision was negated, declaring it was neither just nor convenient to set them at liberty. Also, on this day in 1775, the United Colonies changed their name to the United States. Our guest on this memorable occasion is the San Diego-based iconic activist, actionist, community leader, and abolitionist Laila H. Aziz. We are only 2 months away from the largest public gathering of slavery abolitionists in U.S. history at the Millions for Prisoners March on Washington, and following on the heels of the largest organized U.S. slavery rebellion in the form of the September 9th prison labor work strike. It's going down. People get ready. A change is coming. Some of the stories we'll try and cover today include, first, by Hillary Clinton's own admission in her book, The Clintons Had Slaves. That's what the headlines say, and it is indeed, and in fact, true. The Twitter response to this news was epic. We'll explain what and how. Then, the cost of imprisoning each of California's 130,000 inmates is expected to reach a record $75,560 in the next next year, more than the annual cost of attending Harvard University, and a clear indication of priorities. Also, we live in an age when every face on the street is being randomly scanned for warrants. Some cities have more arrest warrants than they do people. So let's tell the story of how 1.2 million New Yorkers ended up with arrest warrants. If time allows, we'll listen to a message from imprisoned activist Carrie Shakabuna Marshall about the upcoming Millions for Prisoners Human Rights March on Washington. Lastly, Juneteenth is the oldest known celebration commemorating the ending of slavery in the United States. It occurs on June 19th. As modern abolitionists, we have a few words to say about that. We'll also talk a little bit about what being an ally means in this time when unity is paramount. And from our information overflow cutting room floor, we got a lot of that. New allegations arise in federal racketeering case against Baltimore police officers. Abolitionist David Kulma's congressional run in South Carolina is about to come to a conclusion, and the lead detective of the Fairfield Police Department's narcotics unit was charged Friday with stealing heroin and other drugs seized during police operations. Then, Western Kentucky University will give black students free tuitions as an apology for slavery. And in what's being described as a watershed decision, the California Supreme Court has overturned 3 convictions after finding a prosecutor had intentionally excluded Latinx candidates from the jury. We'll cover what we can and share what we can't. Be sure to follow the new Abolitionist Radio page on Facebook to stay up to date. Our abolitionist profile will be provided by Scotty Reid. A writer of the 21st Century Underground Railroad is Williams Barnhouse, who on May 10, 2017 became the 350th person exonerated through DNA evidence. And in our new segment, For Freedom's Sake, A History of Rebellion, we will be remembering the Combahee River Raid of June 2nd, 1863, when Harriet Tubman, under the command of Union Colonel James Montgomery, led 150 black Union soldiers and freed almost 800 enslaved men, women, and children. Got a question or a comment? You can call us at 866-510-9025. You can chat with us and others by logging in at uberconference.com/Black Talk Radio Network. What's happening, Brother Scotty Reid? How you doing, man?
Hey, Max, I'm looking forward to tonight's program and, of course, speaking to fellow abolitionists about their work, her work, and, trying to end slavery. It's just that simple, really. I was thinking earlier about how we come up with these very complicated formulas or theories and what have you in trying to break down the problem that's quite simple to understand. It's slavery. Everything else is a symptom of slavery, and that can be documented. But I just wanted to remind the listeners that if you want to ask a question or a comment, just hit ***. You do have to still, take that extra action in order for us to know that you want to have a question, or we will assume that you're just listening. So I don't want to hold up anyone. Max, it's been over the past couple of days just kind of busy, real busy, trying to keep producing more and more podcasts and doing research to identify problems and temporary solutions. Like I found the Enforcement Act of 1871, which was also known as the Ku Klux Klan Act, which President Ulysses S. Grant, who was a former Union general, we know, during that time period, he asked for legislation to deal with these former Confederates turned Ku Klux Klan terrorists, and he got that legislation. That legislation is still on the books with minor updates to it. I think it was in the 1980s they made a minor update that allowed enslaved persons to sue prison guards and whatnot. These are laws that's on the book, man, that I had no idea about, and so I've been trying to tell other people about it. But Max, it just, again, when we talked about the Obama administration and how he had this message of hope and change, and indeed a lot of people bought into that, and I can understand why, the psychology of why they gave him so much support. But now that his 8 years is done, we have to objectively analyze. And one of the things I just heard a lot of people say during his time in office was, well, he had Republicans blocking everything that he wanted to do. And that's true to a certain extent. When you got a Republican Congress and you're the lone Democrat in the equation of the 3 branches of government, then it's pretty hard to get your agenda pushed through. Now, he did push through a lot of stuff, but it wasn't to our benefit. It wasn't to the cause of freedom and liberty. He did some superficial things like, commute some sentences and things of that nature, or saying in the last 3 months of his administration, we're going to phase out private prisons. Now, if he'd have done that at the beginning of his second term, we wouldn't even be talking about private prisons today, because the market forces would have killed them. But when we looked at that terrorist attack down there in South Carolina on Mother Emanuel, And those 9 victims of terrorism, he had the tools, man, to go after. Because do you recall, Max, when he said, when the website, the white supremacist website that Dylan Roof was reading, and they were saying radicalized him, and this was a nonprofit organization, and Barack Obama talked about he wanted some legislation, which he was never going to get from Republicans, but talked about some legislation to where he can make the donors to these organizations' names public. Well, guess what? The 1871, also known as the Civil Rights Act of 1871, also known as the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, gave him the tools to treat them just how they treating Al-Qaeda or anybody they label ISIS or enemy combatant. And I mean, this has been on the books for almost 150 years. 150 years, what, 130 years? And then another update in the 80s, and you did not use those tools with 2 black U.S. Attorney Generals, both your terms, and y'all did not treat these people like the terrorists that they are. Oh, man, Max, I ain't mean to ramble, man, but that's what I've been up to, man, trying to
see that, brother.
Try to figure out, how we got into this situation and what needs to be done to address this cancer of slavery.
I was hoping that we would take just a moment to remember some of the accomplishments we've gained here in the last 5 years on New Abolitionist Radio. Some of the things we witnessed, the changes, stupendous changes that did not exist before we came along. You talked about Barack Obama, and remember back in 2012 during the State of the Union speech that he gave, there were exactly 0 mentions of criminal justice reform, no mentions of mass incarceration, no mentions of any of that. Him being pushed into speaking about this and reacting to it was a direct result of the abolitionist movement, I'd like to believe. And that's just one of the things. Anything that really sticks out in your mind, Scotty, over these past 5 years? Because I know I've got a bunch of them. I won't go over them all, but I would like to just mention 2 or 3 of them.
Well, yes, you just mentioned Barack Obama. That occurred as a result of the new abolitionist movement, people who classify themselves as abolitionists in this new era of slavery. You meeting with members of Bernie Sanders' campaign team down there in South Carolina at an event that Bernie Sanders spoke for. I know that legislation to end private prisons came about as a direct result of the abolitionist, movement. That has been going on for quite some time, but it seems to really be picking up steam, for lack of a better word, but, picking up momentum as more people become aware that slavery was never abolished. So I believe that's some of the things that stick out to me. And I also believe every abolitionist in this modern era in politics that has run for office has been on this program, been a guest on this program. Whether we
yes, sir.
And so, 5 years, man, it's just a whole lot that we could do.
And they didn't exist before Reverend Ajabu. They didn't exist. It had never happened before the 1800s.
And we identified that and reported it and had him on. So, it's just a number of things. The calls when we would infiltrate the GO groups and the CCAs, now known as Core Civic, whether we were listening to the calls live, hoping to get in a question or two, but of course they didn't allow us to say anything on their earnings calls. These are earning calls for slavery. How much did we make off of human bodies and trafficking human bodies today? Of course, they wasn't using those terms, but that's what we were listening to. And just some of those old, sessions where we would replay that, but then break it down, on a program and really translate what these people were talking about, which Yohanan was particularly good at that.
You mentioned about the political candidates, which is real change. You can see that happening, like David Kulma right now running for Congress in South Carolina as a slavery abolitionist and speaking clearly about it. So those are real changes that we helped put into effect. Another one that one of 2 really big ones, I think, first of all, is the divestment campaigns that really initiated with Columbia University and the students there. And since that initial divestment campaign, we've seen at least $3 billion be shifted out of, in particular, Wells Fargo's pockets, but from prison constructions in general. Teachers unions across the country have been pulling out their 401k plans that have been invested into private prisons. So we've watched prisons lose a lot of money. Also, on August 18th of last year, when we saw that they could bleed and they could die, and they almost did in one day when the Department of Justice announced they would no longer be using the services of private prisons. And they did that again as an answer to the outcry from abolitionists complaining about the corruption within these prison industries. And then finally, I think one of the biggest of all is that I'd like to think that we helped inspire the documentary 13th by Ava DuVernay. Just putting the conversation out in the air continuously over and over again and get more and more people talking about it. And I think that led, I'd like to think at least, that it led to her coming up with, let's write about this, let's talk about it, and putting it out into a film that was nominated for an Oscar.
Just for the historical record, it actually, I agree with you that we probably had an influence on that, but it was an unnamed Netflix executive that came up with the idea for a documentary on the 13th and took it to Ava DuVernay. Wasn't an idea that she hatched or something she took to them. They took the project to her. So to whoever that unnamed executive is, I wish that we knew your name so that we could record your name in the annals of abolitionism in this modern era.
Amen. Amen. You know, to me, it doesn't matter how it got out there, it got out there. And I know that until we really came along and started pushing and getting everybody to push and taking a stand, a real firm stand on what it was we were dealing with and getting people to change their language and their perspectives and their minds, that this has caused this effect towards what we were looking at before as critical mass, when people just started knowing. You know what I mean? We put the message out there along with others, many others, and that message was truth. And that truth is spreading like wildfire now, which manifests in the recent news article about the Clintons. But before we get into the Clintons, I told our guests I would bring her in about 8:15 to 8:20. Unless there's a couple of other moments that you'd like to remember, and there are so many of them, Scotty Reid.
No, we could say that for our anniversary, but I'm looking forward to hearing from our guests and our listeners.
Our anniversary, it comes, we'll be on air the day after our anniversary.
Yeah, we do it the day after.
All right, that sounds good. We could do that because we need to save a little time today. We got a special guest coming in. And let me just pull up her bio that she sent me here today. It's a pretty long and extensive one, but I must tell you that one of the proudest things about Laila Aziz that I saw was when she spoke directly to our sister Angela Davis, one of the forefounders of an abolitionist movement, who now leads a prison abolitionist movement, or used to lead it. Well, she endorses it greatly and regularly. But she talked to her about the Millions for Prisoners March on Washington and asked her for her support and her ideas on it. I was a little disappointed in the reply that she received, because at that point, Ms. Davis kind of redirected everything towards prison abolition and didn't really address the 13th Amendment and how it applies to modern day slavery at that point. But she stood up and she asked, and that was beautiful. Laila Aziz was born in the Nation of Islam in New York Island, New York in 1975. She moved to San Diego, California with her father when her parents divorced at the age of 10, where she would travel back and forth between both coasts. Her experience with the criminal justice system began when her boyfriend was gunned down in San Diego at the age of 18. After returning to San Diego, after a brief hiatus following his death, she began working in a community as a youth advocate. She rose from the bottom of her organization, working as the marketing specialist, case manager, program manager, director of strategic alliance, to finally the director of operations. Laila Aziz currently leads an organization which focuses on workforce development and mentoring for youth and adults who have been touched by incarceration. She is a grant writer who has secured over $5 million worth of funds within the last 5 years to implement programs in her community. This was not enough for Ms. Aziz, and she began to see the similarities in the nonprofit industrial complex and the prison industrial complex. Laila Aziz began steps towards advocacy and revolution in the criminal justice system. Initially, she began working closely with reform groups such as the Youth Fair Sentencing Project, who did phenomenal work around SP 261, SP 260, and Proposition 57. In July of 2016, Laila met with SJ and Crystal Roundtree and began working with them towards their dreams of eliminating the 13th Amendment. During this time, she was able to get expert tutelage from elders in the movement, such as Mama Candy and Max Parthas, shout out. She also began working with George Jackson University and some of the comrades who were recently released from California's notorious solitary confinement units. She also is a member of Families Against Life Without Parole, FUEL, Eliminating Felony Murder, People of Profits, Collective Resistance, the Sustainable Agricultural Commune, Pillars to the Community, and is on the policy committee of Moms of Black Boys, MOB, United for Social Change. All of these endeavors have one purpose: to eliminate the 13th Amendment by strategically partnering with current and potential allies. She is one of many, a slavery abolitionist. Every step is to ensure her children do not reach adulthood in a pro-bondage, legalized slave country. And we here at New Abolitionist Radio welcome you to our program, Laila Aziz. Peace, sister. I think you might have to unmute her there, Scotty Reid. That's at San Diego.
Yeah, we got a number of those on the board. So
we got a bunch of San Diego. Okay, Laila, if you're listening right now, just press **, and that will unmute you, and then when you talk, we'll hear you.
There we go. Welcome.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Okay.
Peace, sister, and welcome.
Wow, that was long. I'm talking about the bio.
It's a beautiful bio. You accomplished great deeds in a short time, indeed.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your tutelage.
I just do what I can do. And today, I'm really proud to have you here because, you are out there working hard to make this happen. And unlike as many as we would hope, you have really adopted the mindset that you're dealing with slavery. And that's one of the things that we have really asked people to just do. Just consider it. And when you did, it was real clear for you, and you've been acting like it ever since. And I got to say, I love you for that.
Thank you so much, sir.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your motivations, strategies. I mean, anything you want to say, the forum is yours. And by the way, this is Scotty here with me, too. Scotty Reid.
Hi, Scotty.
Hi, Laila, and welcome to New Abolitionist Radio. Big fan of yours and that question. I saw the video, Max shared it or posted the video of you asking that direct question in a public forum. And just you asking that question is spreading abolitionists as that video spread and people heard your question. And so I just want to relay to the listeners that how powerful it is when we put these questions to people out in the public forum and force them to ponder them, regardless of what they may answer with. Once the question is put out there, and that question is this slavery we dealing with, then we never know the impact that seed will have as it grows later in that ground that you planted.
Thank you, in that ground that you guys planted. One of the biggest things that I've noticed strategically in this movement and just coming in and having to have growth spurts, times of being very frustrated with the movement because it didn't seem like anyone was listening, and really positioning the message is that our message has to be clear. I called myself an abolitionist initially. I was a prison abolitionist. So what are you going to do with the rapist, Laila? Kill him. You see what I'm saying? And Max Parthas helped me really look at, we're not prison abolitionists, Laila. We're slave abolitionists. That's where we are. That's the clear message that we have. Really looking at the Constitution and the fact that the 13th Amendment pretty much wipes us out of every form of citizenship that any other person has and how strategic they were in making sure this happened, you get angry. The first thing you do when you find out the truth and you really see it, because there's no laws that were accidentally passed to stop people from voting. There were no laws that were accidentally passed to stop your fourth waiver from search and seizure. There were no laws that were accidentally passed to not give you the Eighth Amendment. All of this is grounded in slavery. And I see people try to play tricknology with the language of the 13th. Oh, no, that's not slavery. That's involuntary servitude. We can't vote. They can search us at any time. We can't. We're placed in jail, and there's a parasitic bail system. What do you mean? It's slavery and indentured servitude. It's slavery. And how they're manipulating the laws to ensure that some of our boys, 18 years old, who never killed anyone under just archaic laws like the felony murder rule, and how you use that to give a kid who did no killing life without parole or the death penalty, and that's more extreme than if he purposely walks up to a person and puts a gun to their head and shoots. What are we doing, people? When are we going to really start looking at what's going on, and why is it going on?
So well said, indeed. And passion is evident there in every word that you're expressing, because you got to be passionate about this. We are literally talking about life and death, freedom and slavery, not just for ourselves, but for our children. And the idea that because it's not happening to you, it doesn't exist is ridiculous. Just at face value. If you just look beyond yourself, you can see all of these things occurring. I like to look at it, the difference between slavery of the 1800s and now is that we're not born slaves, but we're born in a slavery hunting ground. And at any moment, any of us can become a slave temporarily, like the 12 Years a Slave story that has been told in film and in book. You know, all they have to do is pick you up. They get as many as they need. Like in California right now, where you're at, they just reported that the price of incarcerating an adult is nearing $80,000 a year, which is more than it costs to go to Harvard. And that really shows you the priorities of what's important. They'll spend $9,000 a year to send you to school and $80,000 a year to send you into a prison.
Yes, Max, I saw that story and I was outraged by it as well. I mean, it shows where their priorities are. Your priorities, when we're talking about the government, whether that's federal government, state government, local municipalities, they place money where their priorities are. And their priorities are not sending young people to college with a free education. As the article stated, you know, it costs more to be incarcerated in California than it costs to go to Harvard, one of the so-called most expensive and prestigious schools in America. So that just really shows you where the priorities are.
And, you know, every time that there's a person who has a rebuttal or an opponent of why people should be enslaved if they convict a crime, they'll tell you public safety. Well, look, if we let people out, they're going to kill people and children will be killed. But yet you have a woman who the majority of the people who voted for this upcoming election, who was very safe in a situation with slaves, prisoners, cooking her food and cleaning her mansion. This is not about public safety. And that's where it really starts. This is about money. And both Republicans and Democrats are okay because their pockets are being lined with the blood of people. And most of these people are black and brown. And that's what we really have to look at and start really challenging anyone, because Republicans and Democrats are our enemy in this system, and challenging them. They lost Florida, and the only reason they care about the 1.5 million people who cannot vote for life because they were convicted of a felony, which is against the Constitution. Doesn't say in the 15th Amendment that you're supposed to be able to vote? But they can't vote for life. Even after they've served their time, you lose Florida to Trump, and now you want to change the law. Isn't that interesting? So if we look at it, we see that it's slavery and slave proponents are on both sides of the aisle. And that's the issue that we're having. No one wants to really say, you know what, we do have slavery. They want to use every other word besides that.
Yeah, that's a pet peeve of mine. It drives me nuts, especially when I listen to U.S. publications like Nation Inside, which was founded as an abolitionist magazine and never has a word to say about modern-day slavery. They'll talk about what's happening in Indonesia. They'll talk about what's happening in India. They'll call that slavery. They'll describe everything that's going on in this system as if you were describing slavery, and then turn around and call it something else. And that just drives me nuts. It's a sense of cognitive dissonance where it's right there in your face, but you can't pucker up your lips and say it, because if you say the word slavery, not only do you have to change, everything you think has to change, but the way you're dealing with this has to change.
Well, Max, I just wanted to just respond to something that Sister Laila just mentioned. But David Kulma, got to mention him. He is running for Congress, U.S. Congress out of South Carolina, and he clearly states that it's slavery. And that is why it is important that we keep engaging these politicians where we are. And like she said, I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green Party, none of that matters if you don't have an abolitionist plank as part of your platform. So shout out to David Kulma, running for Congress in the South Carolina 5th District, is it, Max?
Yes, sir. 5th District. You and I will be meeting with him in a week or so coming up, where we'll be trying to help him get elected and explaining what's going on about modern-day slavery and human trafficking. But definitely, back to you, my sister. Continue, if you don't mind, and tell us more about your perspectives of what we're dealing with. What do you think our overall strategy should include? And if it's okay with you, I know you ran into some issues when your mind changed. And I don't mean like personal issues, because we all deal with that 5 stages of mourning when we figure this out, but within your own community with people who had not come to that same conclusion. How did you deal with that?
It was frustrating. In my community, even though we're all harassed, stopped by the police, and our constitutional rights are just basically taken away day to day on the streets, a lot of people in my community cannot even fathom the world without a militarized police unit. They don't understand how that world would look. So we are even kind of brainwashed to believe that this system is here to ultimately protect us. And that's one of the biggest issues that I had when I started talking to people in the community and talking to preachers. And a lot of it dealt with the fact that most people that I encountered did not know that the 13th Amendment still legalized slavery. That was surprising. And so that language in itself, that started to move people towards what I was saying, but it still wasn't tangible to them. Okay, Laila, so you're saying that if you go to prison or if you're convicted of a crime, that you become a slave. Well, don't do crime. So then we had to start looking at the policies that some people call laws, but they're really policies that different states and the federal government pass that then move you towards slavery. And we looked at gang documentation, and a lot of people are anti-gang, but they started really drilling into that and looking at the fact that how can you make a person a gang member without due process of law and then give them an enhancement based on that documentation? To add insult to injury, they did an audit of our gang system in California, and I think we had, 20-something one-year-olds on our gang documentation list, and it really showed how they weren't really paying attention to that data, but yet people were getting enhancements of 25 to life. So we started looking, okay, you're against me on this, we're kind of having a pushback, especially with the preachers, right? Look at it this way. If you sell dope, which is not good, no, I agree with you, but if the sentence is 2 years, and a person is documented, they're going to get 12, when just a white boy who's a KKK member who's never going to get documented is going to get 2. Is that okay with you? The fact that you're put on a gang documentation list and you've never had due process of law will prevent you from becoming an EMT or a firefighter. You've never been convicted of a crime in your life. Is that okay? You see how they're moving people towards slavery? When you get to court, and you go through those readiness hearings and preliminary hearings and all of these different things, it seems like everybody is working against you. And you don't have the money to pay for an attorney. So it's almost like the system in itself is pushing you towards slavery. And then looking at what they're doing with immigration and putting these people into these, and that's another argument we tend to have. Well, don't come over here if you don't want to be a slave, and don't come over here if you're not a citizen. And it's the brainwashing that you have to constantly attack, because a lot of times, like you said, people don't understand something that they have not been through. So we're trying to start with small, tangible things that a lot of people have been through, and that's bail. People don't know that when you pay a bail bondsman 15% to get out of jail, you basically just gave them money, and a wealthy person never does that. They pay their full bail, and they get their full bail amount back in California. Let's attack the bail system. It's parasitic, and it shows you how this leads to the 13th Amendment, how people plea bargain, how people who are innocent just take a probation with a year just to get out and get back to their lives. Look at this system, and you see, once again, it's about money. It's not about public safety, and it's willing to destroy a mother who has children, who's at the depths of poverty, in order to keep going. They say black women have the same eviction rate as black men's incarceration rates. Look what we're dealing with. A complete attack on the black and brown family. And it's strategic. And it's a caste system. Let's say what it is. There's nothing different in America than in India.
Sister Laila.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I would like to speak to the issue of family and women, as we have been reporting over the past several months, based on some new reports that have come out, that women are the fastest growing demographic, especially when it comes to those who are in state prisons. And a lot of them, the majority, over 50% of them, are mothers. So we're talking about destroying the core of families. And so I know a lot of the mainstream focus is on black males, and it should be. But we're also ignoring new trends on new targets. And, I mean, it's just, I need to hear more, whether they go by the label feminists or, just speaking on women's issues. And as was mentioned earlier, how could you support a woman in a presidential election who has played such a critical role in modern day slavery and human trafficking? And again, so these women are being increasingly targeted. I don't remember the exact figures. It might have been 8 times more than anybody else, but we could use the search engines and pull that up. But I need more women's organizations to become abolitionists, make that part of their platform as well.
I agree. Recently, one of the sisters in San Diego, her name is Mavis Thompson. She was kidnapped in juvenile court because she was challenging the judge who she thought, and the defense pretenders, the public pretenders, who were basically, she felt, were going to railroad her minor son. She was given an obstruction of justice charge. And this woman is facing 11 years because she doesn't listen. 11 years in prison. We're going to pay $75,000 a year, $76,000, let's round it up, a year, because Mavis Thompson doesn't listen. And that's okay with this system. Mavis Thompson doesn't listen. We basically went out and we asked people to help us. We saw what was going on. And some feminist groups stepped up. One of them was FTW Plus Liberation. One of Bree Davis, she did a phenomenal job at working with us. The Black Panthers were out there. Collective Resistance was out there. And we had some of our allies. And it's good that you're going to talk about allies, because what does it mean to be an ally? They stepped up because we refused to pay a bail bondsman to get her out. They had this woman for not listening and a failure to appear, and they dropped one of the failure to appears because they're the ones who gave her the wrong time, and they still had this woman. Her bail was $150,000. When people for not listening.
Was that the woman who was pregnant too?
Yes, it is. The vegan pregnant woman. Yes, it is. She's home. She is home. Some people stepped up. We went to court. They weren't bringing her to court, you guys. They were bringing her in the bottom of the courthouse and pretending she was at court. There were about 20, 30 of us there, though, at court. So we kept calling the DA's office, calling the jail to make sure she got medical treatment, rallying outside the actual county jail. And we were able, because of Brian Pease and another organization called the Peace Resource Center, to actually pay her full $50,000 bail in cash. Boy, were they mad.
I can imagine they were.
When they went in there with that $50,000 cashier's check, Mavis's father and two white allies walked in there. Nobody was asked for ID. The goon squad came and attacked him, basically, and told him he can't even be on the jail premises to pick up his daughter because he had been to prison before. We had problems at every angle, just trying to free this woman who had been kidnapped for not listening.
And
now they want her to... Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're totally fine. Go ahead, sir.
It's just, for me, it just seems very odd that we don't seem to understand as a people here and as a nation that if you continue to put this oppressive boot on a people's neck, that it has long-term and whole-scale consequences. When you start talking about most of the people being in jail right now being people of color in a nation where black people only make up less than 13% of the nation, don't you believe that that will have some long-term consequences to the core, to the family, to the communities, if you're taking all these men out and all these women and children out because you feel you're keeping the community safe, which when we say the community, we know you mean the white community. You don't think that'll have an effect on the people? If these were wild animals, they would have more protected rights. But as human beings, you can just do all you want and don't think it have no consequences whatsoever.
I agree. That's part of moving and working and identifying true allies, and then really making them own up to the contradiction. And that's very, very important. I used to always say that. There was a popular poem, save the whales, save the whales. No, save the black male. And that's exactly what you're hitting on, is the fact that for some reason there's a lack of humanity that's going on. And I just don't understand. One of the things, I just had a back and forth with Indivisible, which is a pretty democratic organization that's pretty big. And they are positioning themselves to oust Republicans in Congress in the 2020 election and making sure they're putting Democrats in there, or the 2018 election, to prepare for the 2020 election to go after Trump. And they're very, very focused on what they're doing. They are liberal. And so every time I would try to post something about the 13th Amendment or anything of that nature, I ended up they wouldn't approve my post. So I began to just write on my Facebook that Indivisible they're basically frauds. Because once again, you're going to come and ask us to help you to get Florida, but you don't care about slavery. So let's be specific. And now how are you going to run Hillary when they want to run Hillary again? How are you going to run Hillary when she's pro-slavery? And those are the things that we're trying to get them to understand. If you want to be allies, this is the thing that we have to remember as black people specifically. We hold there because California, we're progressive. The white people are going to go Democrat. But it's the black people in these southern and Midwest states that hold the power to swing an election. We might not be much, but like Malcolm X said, we use our ballot like a bullet. You're not going to just tell us to vote for you because the Republicans are racist. That's not going to work. We're looking at specific issues that affect the black community. Why do you think this white woman, where is she, in Alabama? Why is she restoring the vote?
Right.
Have we asked her? She's a Republican.
I would like to answer Mac's rhetorical question about, do they care about the long-term impact upon the communities and families? And again, I get memories of pre-1865 slavery and all the stories we've read in the dramatic recreations on film and in plays. And no, did they care about breaking up families on plantations pre-1865? Did they care about the long-term impact? No, they cared about making that sale, making that dollar and increasing their wealth. So just wanted to rhetorically answer that question that no, it's the same as it was then. They don't care. We do have a caller. I don't know how long they've been on the board, but 757, thank you for calling in to New Abolitionist Radio. Did you have a comment or a question for our guest tonight, Sister Laila, Aziz?
Oh, I just wanted to add, it's me, Otis, Max, and Miss Laila, and Scotty. It's me. She was talking about that system, the legal system. this ties back into what we talked about earlier with the power of district attorneys, judges that are being paid by the very same prison industrial complex that gets money based on government contracts, then uses, if they make $1 billion, they use 2 to 3 million of that to give donations back to the very same congressmen that we're talking about on both sides. The thing that really gets me when you start talking about trying to get black people to understand it, the religious part of this is so much of why it's hard to turn people around. Most going into these facilities, pastoring and trying to save people, you got most of the industry.
Otis, you saying, Otis, for some reason your phone keeps going in and out. But to your point about the churches, and we have had some disappointment with a few churches we reached out to, to go and allow us to speak to their congregations about abolitionists and pointing out that this is slavery. But we can turn that around by just using the right sort of message. And we know the church's historical role in abolitionists. And one of the very first modern abolitionist candidates that ran for Congress out of Illinois, I believe, was Reverend Max, Reverend Ajabu. He was a reverend. I mean, he is a minister. So,
Indiana.
So I do agree that the black church has lost its historical place in being the moral consciousness of America and being the center of abolitionist activity pre-1865. And I mentioned Emmanuel Church down there in Charleston, South Carolina. It was burnt down to the ground because of its opposition to slavery, not just vocal, but real activities against slavery. And so I agree with you, but I also can see an opening with the right message. And so we have to redouble our recruiting efforts of individual pastors.
That's what I was actually trying to get around to after listening to y'all repeatedly. I'm convinced that just like I see Max going around talking about the abolition part of it, I'm really looking at trying to put together a program to start going around and explaining how the tentacles of this system is destroying us so that you can turn the churches around. Because I don't think people really understand. I mean, even talking to my immediate family, they give the very same retorts. Oh, if you don't want to do the crime, you're not understanding. Khalif Browder is a perfect example. And I'm talking with my mom and sisters trying to explain to them. When he went to Rikers, he just happened to be the eccentric case that was there for 3 years. But the truth is, this is happening all over this country, just like I heard Miss Laila talking about how they did the pregnant woman. That is exactly what they do on the small scale. When you got a police force that is making money off of asset forfeiture and making sure that as long as the crime rate is elevating, they know that they're going to get funds to increase the size of the police department, what you're doing is giving people a monetary incentive to not care. And unless it gets explained to people, they stay with the standard, if you don't want to do crime, don't go to jail. You don't want to go to jail, don't do the crime. No, it's more than that. Innocent people are being swept up and then coerced into criminality.
Right, or being criminalized, like we'll talk about later with the tickets and the warrants in New York City. I'd like to ask later, have you had any problems with working with the local religious organizations? Have they accepted, or any of them accepted, this narrative of legalized slavery and human trafficking?
They haven't embraced it to the level that I've wanted them to embrace it. There's a lot of education that needs to go around. The churches basically, and let's just be truthful, they're moneymakers. And so they're there to increase their funds. They're not very big on activism or pushing to change laws. And a lot of the actual, I remember if you wanted to get elected, you went to the church. A lot of the churches now are being neutral, even when it comes to issues, because they want to make sure they can get money or they're able to sway anyone based on what their position is. But I haven't given up. I'm like you, Max. I have not given up on the churches. I have not given up. I just look at it as I have not done enough work. And so I need to get deeper into the church.
There is one church that has joined our ranks fully, it seems, and well, not completely, but let's just say the black section of that church has joined our ranks, and that would be the Quakers. Quakers have been working with us closely now. Shout out to people like Sharon Smith and Sarah Williams, who have stood by me side by side and talked the same rhetoric that I talk. So the Quakers have started to move back into their historical position.
Max,
and I remember
everyone, I would like to just point out one of the very few good things to come out of that Donald Trump has done. Hold up. I'm getting some feedback from somewhere. I think that's off your line, Otis. Yeah, that was coming off your line, Otis. Sorry, I had to mute you. If you want to chime back in, hit star. The Trump administration recently signed a law that he says is giving back their free speech rights to churches. Now, we know that he did this as a bone to the right-wing evangelicals, like at Liberty University where he gave that speech. But now churches no longer have an excuse to not get involved by saying, oh, that's political and our 501c3 prohibit us from engaging in politics because, we're going to have to go through politics in order to end slavery. Everything's controlled by politics. And so now no longer they have that excuse because Donald Trump just allowed them to engage in activism under freedom of speech. So I just want to point that out because a lot of times in the past, that could be a valid excuse of why they weren't as involved as they were pre-1865.
That was one of the first things I heard when I started approaching the church, and I approached my local church first. And they told me that A, their congregation ain't that big to make a difference, and B, that they would be risking their 501c3 status by engaging in political activities. And I've heard that on more than one occasion. So they were more concerned about whether or not they maintained their 501c3 status than freeing people who are in bondage. And that was shameful to me.
And I'm going to agree with you. The Quaker Church in San Diego has stepped up to the plate also. And they've done some phenomenal work. And that has been the consistent church. And historically, they're right where they need to be. We need the black church to step up. And then we need also the Hispanic churches to step up. Because I'm looking at churches, I'm talking about 2, 3, 4 on every block.
Yeah, especially here where I'm at in South Carolina, where we have like McDonald's franchises. They're everywhere, in the Bible Belt. But we really need to get them involved. They need to take their place in what's going on and be on the right side of history. Well, and that kind of leads me to the question of allyship, which we shortly discussed a little while ago. Now, I'm leaving the realm of what I know for a fact to what I believe personally, okay? Just so you know, this is my opinion. But it's really hard for me to be standing next to someone, and we're talking about the same subject, right? We're talking about, let's just say mass incarceration for the purpose of this argument, right? So we're talking about mass incarceration, and then I start talking about how it's really slavery, like either one of you would be doing. And the person who is in the fight with me, standing next to me, thinks that I'm a damn fool, and that I'm talking some Chicken Little stuff, and everything I'm saying is not really true, but I'm in the fight with them, so they're going to stand next to me. That doesn't feel like an ally to me. It's very condescending. You're not even entertaining my argument. You don't even want to consider it, but you want to stand next to me and fight. I feel some kind of way about that. I don't know about you two, or three, which are on the line right now, but me personally, I don't feel like that's being an ally. I feel like that's just being condescending and using me to advance your own agendas.
I'm at complete refusal. I'm with you. And you have personally started to eliminate the term mass incarceration from my vocabulary based on what you wrote. Basically call it what it is. It's slavery. And that's how we really have to start attacking it. Language in itself. So every time someone says mass incarceration, no, I'm not talking about mass incarceration. I'm talking about slavery. And that in itself starts to really shift people's ideologies and understanding of what this really is. If you're an ally of mine and you don't understand that we have people currently in slavery, 2 million people in slavery, and that has nothing to do with public safety, then you're not an ally of mine. And that's where we have to start. A lot of times when we do partner with different people or organizations, they want to push their little watered-down agenda. And basically you have to pull away from the table at that point. If you can't say that slavery exists and you can't own that, and this is just a party for you, and you want to reform, basically you want to help keep the system where it is, then we have nothing to talk about. And not only that, I'm going to hold you accountable to your contradictions. And I think that's important.
Yes. I will applaud people who are doing good work. I don't care what you think, whether it's slavery or not. If you're doing good work, I will applaud you. The Innocence Project has never said this is slavery, but they're out there freeing people every day from prisons. Same thing applies to people who work within the prison to, help with letter writing campaigns or visitation, bringing people back and forth to visit their loved ones. That's good work. It's beautiful, and we need it. But we also need you to change your mind about what you're really dealing with while you're working on those projects and at different areas of where help is needed.
I agree 100% because I would participate in things that I have deemed reform, such as our bail reform going on in California. But it's not going to take me from that's a strategic reform effort to topple the system ultimately as far as slavery is. So as long as I can keep committed there, if I lose focus, then I know I've lost my way. So I totally agree with you. Good work is good work. But it's our job to make sure they understand the work.
Exactly. And just to point out so people understand, when you're talking about the bail industry, which is primarily funded by insurance companies, we're talking about an industry that only exists in 2 countries on the entire planet. That's us and the Philippines. Everybody else thinks that this is immoral, unjust, and unethical. But here we are every day doing what is immoral, unjust, and unethical. And if you go to certain communities, you'll see 3, 4, 5 bail bondsmen all on the same block, just profiting off the suffering of their neighbors.
Max,
the fact that dog, the bounty hunter, came to lobby to keep this, I'm like, you people have...
Scotty, you were saying?
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't mean to interrupt. I seem to be having some issues on my end with my audio. It's just one of those nights where we had these little gremlins. But she just brought up Dog the Bounty Hunter. I didn't know that he had actually came out there to take a political stand and lobby for the bail system. But again, like Malcolm said, media most powerful entity on the face of the planet. And media has played a big role in why people are not seeing it as slavery. I mean, we had to go back to the first program. What was it? I forget what the name, Cops, and then the one about the prison lockup and all of that. Slavery has become entertainment, and they're profiting off of it. So it's just, man, this system is so messed up. But going back to what Max was saying about the good works, and what have you, even though an organization maybe has not come to the realization of what they're truly dealing with, we still need people to treat those symptoms because, like the Innocence Project, if they weren't doing what they were doing, that would be 100 people a year or how many ever they're getting out every year that would have never gotten out. So, yes, I do believe in giving our allies some leeway. But at the same time, at the end of the day, still educating them and maintaining my position that this is slavery. That's what you're really working on, the symptom of slavery. I support what you're doing, but I still view what you're doing as, treating a symptom of slavery. But I'm going to be here when you come around to that realization.
Yes, sir. Well, listen, we are on our first break. I want to take this break. When I come back, we take another call. If anybody's calling and wants to ask a question or speak to Laila here tonight, and then we'll give her a chance to say whatever she wants to say and get on to our rest of this show here. You're listening to New Abolitionist Radio. Today we have our special guest, Laila Aziz, out of San Diego, and she is telling us about her struggles in this abolitionist movement. We'll be right back after these messages.
The Black Talk Media Project funds the use of new media technology in efforts to restore independent black voices to the myriad of issues affecting Afro-descendant people all over the planet. If media can control the minds of the masses, as Malcolm X once said, then you must ask yourself, who is in control of the media targeting the masses of black people today? Help bring back independence, self-determination, and respect for black culture in the production of global media by joining the effort to crowdfund new black media for the new millennium. Visit blacktalkmediaproject.org for more information on how you can invest in public black radio for the masses.
Peace and welcome back to New Abolitionist Radio. If you've been listening in to our interview here with Laila Aziz and you want to ask a question or make a comment, now is the time. Just press * to unmute yourself and state your name, where you're calling from, and what your comment or question is. I see you got a few friends from the California area. Anyone, Scotty? There you go. We got a 817 on the line. Welcome to New Abolitionist Radio. I see they are muted themselves.
I forgot to unmute the phone. Hello?
Hello. Welcome to New Abolitionist Radio. You're here with Max Parker, Scotty Reid, and Laila Aziz.
Yeah. Thanks, Sister Laila, for... My name is Pamela Wood first, and I run a magazine out of San Diego, California. It's called Interest Magazine, and it was inspired by Laila. He always says, "Peace, Empress," and then we go into our conversation about her abolitionist work or whatever is going on during that day. But she has been such an inspiration for me to take the power of the pen and the media and use it for the movement, for the abolitionist movement. I've learned a great deal from Sister Laila in the past, the past year, past 6 months. We met years ago, probably about 20 years ago, and I encountered her again at a People Over Profits rally, and she's just an amazing individual. One of the things that we've been working on in San Diego recently is the Mavis Thompson case. And with Mavis Thompson, I've been speaking a lot with her because I'm interviewing her, doing an ongoing interview about her case. And one of the things that she told me that just shocked me, hurt my heart yesterday, was that they were trying to get her to sign a 10-year order of protection as part of her deal for her obstruction of justice case. That bothers me for two reasons. One, it makes it look like she was really neglected as a child if she accepts that deal. Two, it breaks down the foundation of the family. And then the third reason is she has to abandon her son for 10 years. That child is without its mother, a ward of the system. So I just wanted to say that we need to rally around Sister Mavis and make sure that the district attorney needs to come at her with something better, or nothing at all. The charges really need to be dropped. But she's going through a lot for no reason. They're attacking her character. They're attacking her motherhood. And they do this to almost every black woman that goes through the system. But with Mavis, they're going a little bit harder because of her stance as a cop watcher. That's all I wanted to say.
Indeed. And you mentioned how the tree of life works where, one inspires another and another inspires another. And inspiration is one of those things like love, where it really works best when it's shared. And to hear your testimony, how she inspired you, is uplifting. Thank you indeed for that.
Thank you.
And it is mutual, Pam.
Oh,
it really is. The work that you're doing, I want to thank you so much. Pam, anytime we're having any issues or we want to get something out there about the abolitionist movement or anything, Pam utilizes the magazine. But there's something else that Pam does. She's also a connector. Pam connected me with moms of black boys. It's 170,000 women of all races and nationalities who have black sons. And this group was started by, I went on its public information, it was started by the vice president of BET and Viacom, who's a black mom. and they have a policy committee, and that's what they're pushing, Max. And so right now I'm under the tutelage of some sisters, phenomenal attorneys, and this is because of Pam's connection. And I'm really starting to get my hands dirty on making this bigger. And I felt like I was in a silo for so long. And because of people like Pam and people like Bree and Tegan and just everyone, we're working together. And that's why it's a mutual love and a mutual accountability and a mutual push. So I want to thank Pam just for that, which is everything.
Indeed, chaos is subject to initial conditions. It's just the smallest changes in the system can change the entire system. And then it happens when you start enlightening people on what's going on, particularly when it comes to law. Just recently, the National Lawyers Guild endorsed the Millions for Prisoners March on Washington. And that is really huge as far as I'm concerned, because now you're talking about an army of lawyers looking into this. And because of circumstances like that, getting our legal allies involved, we've seen historical moments where, for instance, out in, I believe it's in California, the immigrants are suing the state for slave labor laws. And that's an ongoing case going right now. That's heading towards the Supreme Court.
Yeah, Max, and when y'all were talking earlier about the Hispanic groups and what have you, because they are, they are a potent, important voting bloc in their own right. And they can use that ballot as a bullet, too, as Sister Laila, quoted Malcolm X. But I have not seen of the, let's say the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce or even La Raza. I haven't seen any of those large, well-known Hispanic organizations come out as abolitionists and say that this so-called immigration detention is really slavery. It's slavery. And remember, we had on our Asian American abolitionist lawyer, Sister Angela Chan, from out there in California, and she wrote an article about how that's even, using constitutional argument that that's slavery and pointing to the 13th Amendment. So, yeah, we're making strides, man. That's one of those memories you asked for earlier, and that's Angela Chan. Yes.
I was also very inspired when Sean King did the same thing and wrote an article through the New York Times about or the Daily News, how slavery never ended. You know what I mean? It's unfortunate that they write these articles and then forget them afterwards and start talking about reform. But, they wrote them, and that's a move forward in getting people to wake up. Because not everybody wakes up immediately. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. And we're so adamant about the idea of using certain language and terms and identifiers because it does make a big difference. When you're talking about you're an abolitionist, that means you want to see an end to slavery, an end to human trafficking, which is legalized through the 13th Amendment and practiced everywhere USA. When you're talking as a reformist, you want to reform a crime against humanity. That's how we see it. You're talking about reforming or fixing something that shouldn't even exist.
I agree totally, Max and Scotty. And I've noticed that Union del Barrio, they're doing a big prison conference, and they are abolitionists. And Kathy, who is the significant other of the late Ernesto Bustillo Sr., who started Union del Barrio, she told me what you told me. Two people I respect. She said, Laila, we are not prison abolitionists because we're going to put some of those people who did this to us in prison when we get done. Mm-hmm. We are slavery abolitionists.
Man, I just want to play that on replay over and over again. We are going to put some of these people who have done this to us in the same cages they wanted to put us in. And at the top of my list of shit to do and people to put in a prison would be Hillary Clinton. Because everything that is going on right now keeps pointing back to 1994 and the birth of Wackenhut Corrections Corporation, which got 70 to 80% of their money coming from the Clinton administration. And the narratives that they put out about super predators and criminalizing black life and black people, that led to one of the largest eras of incarceration that we've seen since the fugitive slave laws. This woman is so guilty that if you look up the word guilty in a dictionary, her face will be next to it. Her and her husband.
Well, Max,
Now, I know a lot of. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, the challenge again comes back to, as I spoke earlier about women's organizations, and I'm including the sororities and all of that, because I had actually shared that abolitionist message with a black woman who was on a radio show on a panel, and she was totally unaware that it was affecting women on that level, and she was saying sororities need to get involved. So when I say women's organizations, you know, the Professor Bell Hooks, I was so encouraged, inspired, and you know, just applauded her when she refused to endorse Hillary Clinton. And she said it's not just about a woman, it's about the woman. And what this woman has done, you can't ask me as a woman to endorse her, and so, because that's endorsing what she has stood for. So that's again that cognitive dissonance among women.
Trying to get the fox to fix what the wolf caused, the problems the wolf caused, huh? Man, well, we are coming to the conclusion of our interview, and I would like to open up the line one more time. If anybody has a question or comment.
I think we got a caller from New York.
Yes, you're here with us on New Abolitionist Radio. If you've got a question or comment, just state your name and your question or comment and where you're calling from.
Yeah, I'm be brief. I'm calling out of the Carolina area. SJ from Jailhouse Lawyer Speak, and
hey, SJ, and welcome.
Yeah, so I gotta be kind of brief. I'm hungry, but I just wanted to first been setting it. I wanted to applaud you all for the work you all are doing on your radio program. You know, it is a humongous tool in the movement. You know, whether no matter how they're going about their work, I think many people in your program. I want to thank my sister comrade Laila for coming on the program as well. I think she's definitely expressed the platform very eloquently all around the board. So I just want to touch bases and let you know, got a block right here, right now, cell block here right now. We're probably about 7 or 8 here. We just listening and breaking bread together. And I said, I'm going to hit this star, so tone that so I can at least be all doing, man. And I'm definitely put the right march. So just want to thank you.
Man, in this broadcast, our anniversary broadcast, relatively speaking, I have had more reasons to smile than a little bit. I'm just saying, man, thank you for all of the work that you are all doing, man. It's beautiful to see this movement coming together with a real solution. And we all know that we have a better chance of beating this beast using the Constitution of the United States than we do working on symptoms to beat it in its entirety. This, I believe you said this, JS, that SJ, that this is a time where we have never had a better chance to be unified under one ideal than this.
Right, and he spoke about the tools, and again, our anniversary isn't into next week, but Max asked me earlier, and if I'm not mistaken, did he not just say he called in from a prison plantation?
Yes, sir. With 7 or 8 brothers
and
sitting there together listening to this conversation about the future.
And so how many times has that happened? And Max, we had a private conversation where you were saying that, hey, you gave birth to a movement. And I was like, no, we just are in the right time with the right technology that we are able to make those connections. So, you know, I appreciate it whenever we hear from the victims and just the solidarity that we have with them. And so they have really been involved in this fight for their own freedom. And that just makes me feel very good. And I had spoke to my best friend who's behind bars yesterday, and he is in North Carolina and as well. And I'm not going to give his name out because I don't want to, you know, put him on the radar any more than he already is. But he is organizing, and, you know, he is supportive of the march, already knew about it, the April 19th march. August 19th march in Washington, D.C. for prisoners' human rights. And he is an abolitionist, and he recognized the 13th Amendment did not abolish slavery either. So it's just great, man, when we could, make those connections with people in those conditions and just break bread and strategize on how we're going to end it from without and from within.
Amen. And I don't necessarily look at all our brothers and sisters behind enemy lines or inside the belly of the beast as victims. Sometimes God puts you in those positions where you could do the most work from. You never know what it is that you're able to accomplish from anywhere. Just look at Free Alabama Movement, for instance. They have started something that is globally recognized now. And had they never been in those places at those times, that would not have occurred. So, yeah, you never know.
Hey, Max.
Yes?
I think we got a call. I can't see the telephone number on my board, but it's showing a phone from New York, in the New York area. If you would like to speak, now is the time as we wrap up our segment with our guests. Okay.
Peace.
Hey, that sounds like Brother Tag. What's going on?
Peace to you all. This is Tag, and
peace, Tag.
Peace. It's great hearing all that I've heard since I've been able to get on to the call to listen in. I just felt compelled to chime in because you were talking about Sister Hillary, and I wanted to just check in to see if y'all were discussing her plans for tomorrow here in the New York City, particularly in Brooklyn.
No, sir. I'm aware of it. I hadn't had the opportunity to speak on it, but if you'd like to brief us quickly, please do so.
Yeah, I mean, I almost don't want to because it's been such an uplifting moment, but just to let people know, particularly if you're in New York or the tri-state area, Hillary Clinton will be receiving an honorary doctorate and will be giving the commencement speech at the graduation of none other than Medgar Evers College, and it will apparently be delivered to her by Medgar Evers' family. His wife and children, I think even grandchildren. So it's really just in light of all that we know about her and her history and her slaveholding and her perpetuation of the logics of enslavement in this country and across the globe. It's really a despicable act, to have her giving a commencement speech to the predominantly black students at Medgar Evers College.
Yeah, I posted the event page on New Abolitionist Radio. For anybody in the area, please show up in protest of this. Well, you're right, man. This is just devious.
Yeah, Tag, are you aware of any efforts to counter her appearance?
Yeah, definitely. Thankfully, particularly the Haitian community out here has really been holding down the efforts of letting people know who she is and how outrageous it is for her to be giving a commencement speech and receiving this honorary doctorate. So there's a group called Kulma that's behind the efforts to combat this, and a number of other organizations, including I believe the UAM is involved, and a few other organizations out here, but primarily the Haitian community has really not, are really not tolerating this and have been very vocal about it. And so expecting to see a good deal of resistance to that travesty tomorrow morning.
This is something that white supremacists tend to do very often. When we were there as witnesses and to bringing the flag down in South Carolina, one of the final moments was they handed it to a black policeman who folded it up lovingly and honorably to hand it off to the person who would be putting it in the museum or wherever it went. And it's things like that they do that just are just sick, the devious. Like, you know what you're about, Clinton. You know what you're about, and you're allowing this to go on and smiling while you do it.
No, she's not allowing it to go on. The public is allowing this. People who are uninformed, I don't want to criticize the descendants of Medgar Evers, but you have to question how much are they educated on her activities. But Tag, I want to thank you, man, for your report and your work with the Black Talk Media Project, and especially, letting us know what's going on in the New York tri-state area. But we do got another call. Tag, did you have anything else?
No, I would just point out that it's going to be at the Barclays Center, which is, as we know, a long-standing slaveholding family, and so the contradictions, or I guess the consistencies, are seemingly don't end in this story. And just shouts to all the abolitionists and to New Abolitionist Radio for what y'all have been doing, and it's truly important right now.
Thank you, Tag.
Tag, you reminded me, just saying real quick, you reminded me of what's happening in New York now with the upcoming Puerto Rican Day Parade, and the mayor has decided to tell people that they should not be honoring who they should be and who they should not be honoring based on whatever he thinks is right or wrong, while meanwhile, Rikers Island, named after a notorious slave catcher, is still carrying on that legacy to this day.
We got another call from 757.
Yeah, Scotty, I was just
radio. Oh,
yeah. This is Otis again. He was given some of that information. I tagged it on Facebook earlier. That's the protest Hillary resurrection at Barclays Center, 7:00 till noon tomorrow. That's the Haitians. They've been on her since the Hillary Clinton, when she was Secretary of State, actually doing that work for the Haitian Reconstruction. So they've been the most powerful group that have been steadily protesting everything she's done in New York, and the media is trying to ignore them. Right. But they are the ones that put together this protest for tomorrow, because I'm online with a couple of Haitians. And it's from 7 to noon tomorrow, and it's called Protest Hillary's Resurrection at Barclays.
All right. Well, thanks, Otis.
They should be leading the way, considering the circumstances that Haiti is under right now, with contracts with the GEO Group, who are housing Haitians in prisons with cells that only hold 9 people, holding 90 people in the cells right now. They're just rounding people up and throwing them into prisons with no charges whatsoever in Haiti right now, and that is partially due to the Clintons.
Yeah, the GEO Group got that contract after the earthquake, and we know Bill Clinton, as well as, Hillary Clinton in official capacity as Secretary of State, with Bill Clinton being appointed by people in the Haitian government and put them over the hurricane recovery efforts. The hurricane recovery efforts. And I mean, there are so many issues there, but that article just came out a couple of days ago about their prisons have the highest overcrowding rate in the world in those prisons in Haiti. And I remember seeing that, and I was just thinking about, the Haitian Revolution and looking at it now and looking at those pictures of all of those black people crammed into those cells, and some of the stories reporting like Khalif Browder just picked up off the street. One of the guys been in there for 3 years, and nobody ever told him what he was charged with, let alone gave him a trial. He escaped, and then they picked him back up again, caught him again, and he back in prison, and still ain't been told what he was in prison for. That is just so disgusting in the historical context of slavery in this hemisphere. Wow. But, Max, I don't want to hold up Sister Laila. Yes. See if we can get some final comments from her as we wrap up the segment ahead of our next, our last station ID break.
Sister Laila,
quick. I'm just excited, Max. Yes. Like you said, when SJ and the brothers came on the scene and they're listening in. SJ brought me in this movement about July, I want to say, maybe June, And I didn't know a lot about it and how we could get this done. I didn't know how you change a constitutional amendment. I didn't know the historical ramifications, how this is a workers' issue, and how to start moving people towards being an abolitionist and abolishing the 13th Amendment. I didn't know about the Lee Woods work before I met SJ and all the work Lee Woods did as far as trying to use the human rights article for the language. And I only knew about you, Max, because you are on my husband's Facebook, who's incarcerated, and he has had your radio station on there for a very, very long time with the picture of Frederick Douglass. So, and then all of a sudden you were connected. I was like, okay, we're on one. We're on to something right now. And I just want to thank you guys. I look forward to Washington. We're going to be in front of the White House. We're going to be heard. We're going to be loud. We're going to make sure people understand the true issue of slavery still being legalized. This country loves slavery. There has not been a point in time where it has been truly abolished. And we're going to demand that. And I know with people like you, Max, people like you, Scotty, people like SJ, people like Kalika, people like Crystal, we're going to get this done.
Yes.
And I'm ready to work.
Somebody play me some glorious music right now. Some victorious, glorious music, because we in it to win it. We're not here half-stepping. We're hoping that this next generation don't have to deal with what we're dealing with now, and we plan on ending it. That is the end game for us. And if you don't like it, then you need to get on board and do something about it. Thank you for being here tonight with us, Laila Aziz, and God bless in your journeys and your efforts out there. You've got some lifetime allies here. If you ever need us, we'll just call away.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Sister Laila, and you have a blessed evening.
You too, Scotty. Thank you for all you do.
You're listening to New Abolitionist Radio. That was our guest, Laila Aziz, out in San Diego, and telling us about her struggle and her ideas and where we're going from here. And we'll all be meeting up August 19th in Washington, D.C. for probably the most historical event that has been seen in this country since the early 1800s. You're listening to New Abolitionist Radio. We're going to take a quick message from our sponsors, and we'll be right back after this.
Black Talk Media Project launched the digital radio platform Black Talk Radio Network, the first such platform created to serve the black community specifically. Black Talk Radio Network has grown with a variety of radio hosts, digital radio stations, and podcasters. Web analytics say Black Talk Radio, the platform, has an online reach that ranks it among the top independent black media platforms in the world. All of this is possible because of financial contributions to the nonprofit Black Talk Media Project. If you love the work we do and the voices and perspectives we bring to you every day, make a donation today to ensure that Black Talk Radio is here in the future. Black Talk Radio is new black media for the new millennium.
Welcome back to New Abolitionist Radio. Again, want to thank our guests for joining us here tonight and in helping us to spread the word of abolition, because abolition is the truth right now, and the truth will defend itself. You don't need to defend the truth. You just tell it, and it will defend itself. That's why we get a lot of ignorance, because rather than even consider it, they would prefer to ignore it, because it's not something that you can really argue against if you simply look at the truth of the matter. Well, let's get into Hillary Clinton. A lot has been said about Hillary Clinton, and some new information has come out, and I thought it was epic how the response to it came. Again, a testimony or a testament to the efforts of people like Laila Aziz and SJ and Crystal Roundtree and us here at New Abolitionist Radio and Lee Woods and so many others who have been putting that abolitionist message out. There was a passage in Hillary Clinton's book, and I'm going to read the passage to you, and it says, "We kept down costs is the argument for slave labor. One unusual aspect of living in the Arkansas governor's mansion was getting to know prison inmates who were assigned to work in the house or the yard. In the house or the field, huh? When we moved in, I was told that using prison labor at the governor's mansion was a long-standing tradition. Yes, it was, Hillary. It goes all the way back to the 1600s, which kept down costs. And I was assured that the inmates were carefully screened. I was also told that one-time murderers were by far the preferred security risks. The crimes of the convicted murderers who worked at the governor's mansion usually involved a disagreement with someone they knew, often another young man in the neighborhood, or they had been with companions who had killed someone in the course of committing another crime. I had defended several clients in criminal cases, but visiting them in jail or sitting next to them in court was not the same as encountering a convicted murderer in the kitchen every morning. I was apprehensive, but I agreed to abide by tradition until I had a chance to see for myself how the inmates behaved around me and my oh-so-special family. I saw and learned a lot, and as I got to know them better, we enforced rules strictly and sent back to prison any inmate who broke a rule. I discovered, as I had been told I would, that we had far fewer disciplinary problems with inmates who were in for murder than those who had committed property crimes. In fact, over the years we lived there, we became friendly with a few of them, African-American men in their 30s who had already served 12 to 18 years of their sentence. Twitter went nuts on this, and the way they went nuts is a beautiful thing to see because they started quoting slavery. They started talking about modern-day slavery. They started talking about the 13th Amendment, and to see these people speaking out when just 5 short years ago, we could barely hear anything about it at all. Nobody knew nothing about it. And now it's as if everybody seems to know and was ready to just slap back with the truth of the matter. So I thought that was a wonderful thing to see. And I like the fact that she has been exposed right here, where she literally had slaves in her house. Scotty?
Yeah, Max. Now, this isn't a memory tied to New Abolitionist Radio, but tied to Black Talk Radio Network. And I haven't heard from her in a while, and I hope she's okay. But a listener, and she would call in from time to time, said if not listening to Black Talk Radio, she would have been one of those that voted for Hillary Clinton. And as somebody was trying to debate with me on the black community support of Hillary Clinton, which was in high numbers. Now, we're just talking about black voters. We're not talking about all black people, because the majority of Americans, period, do not participate in elections, which, of course, is by voting. But she had a very high support, especially among black women. But that black woman who had called in and said she didn't vote for Hillary Clinton because of the information she got off of this network just let me know, wow, the impact that you can have on national elections if just a sliver of people, and of course we got to give a shout out to the Baltimore chapter of Black Lives Matter, who recorded them questioning her after one of those events about her still taking money from the private prison lobbyists. So I just want to say abolitionists played a role in why Hillary Clinton did not win the Electoral College. Just that small, tiny sliver, mostly millennials in the black community, just would not cast a vote for her. So, you never know what kind of impact you can have on this system and by just sticking to your principles of abolitionism. Max? Max, are you there? I don't hear you, bro. I hope we're not having issues again. Okay, we may have lost Max. Max, are you there? Okay, we appear to be having some technical issues. Okay, we got Otis. I can hear Otis Max. We're having some problems with your audio. Otis, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I was just wanting to expand on that. He was talking about Clinton, about just that in Arkansas, what the Clintons were going through. The majority of southern states, from Texas all the way across to Maryland, use that very same system.
Yes.
Same thing here in Virginia, same thing in Texas. And as a matter of fact, I posted to your Facebook page another young man out of New York who has a project talking about that going through. He was just down in Louisiana, and he posted the very same thing, saying that when he went down to talk to the legislator, he looked around the Capitol. That's the only workers in there. Rather than give us jobs, prison people, and make them work for nothing. The interesting thing about Hillary was something I learned at Big Brothers when I was out in Tucson and found out what was happening. Can you imagine? They give you the information. If you've got a person that's going to jail at 16, 17, and 18, been in jail for 12 to 14 years, the only way he can get to that job is have an exemplary record, which means he's docile and not creating any problem.
Yeah, I think we have...
Basically broke them.
Yeah, you're exactly right. This goes on in all the governors' mansions across the United States. Well, I shouldn't say all, but I know I've read more about this same story more than once, even including here in North Carolina, where they're using prison slave labor. So this. Well,
I'm telling you, I'm going to give you some more information on your Facebook page. I just went over it today earlier. It is actually the guy put up the chart. It's across every southern state from Texas all the way to Maryland. As a matter of fact, he gives a digital map of it. And I'd never seen anything that intricate showing it. So, and then I want to touch on another thing that Max brought up, an article talking about Hillary where this excerpt was taken out of. But also you find out from that 1994 data that they went through to open records and found out you can see where every one of the congressmen got donations from prison people or people who had prison contracts, from the food to the clothing. So now you start to understand why it's hard to get anybody to call it slavery, because each of them is making money off of it. They're either involved in the supply chain for custodial or the transportation. The stock that they own is all in the prison companies. They even have shell companies doing the maintenance for the prisons that are.
Okay, we lost your audio, Otis. Max, are you back with us?
Okay.
Okay, there you go. You're back. Max, are you with us? Okay, Max still looks like he's trying to log back in. We've been having some gremlins in the system today. Let me pull up some more because we're about to run out of time. We have a couple of regular segments that we like to get to. I don't know if we'll be able to get to them all. We do have another program coming up at 10 o'clock p.m., Mind, Body, and Spirit Radio, which is hosted by some lovely sisters. Max. Okay, yeah, we're going to wait on Max. So I'm going to go ahead and just tackle the abolitionist in profile. Tonight on New Abolitionist Radio, our abolitionist in profile will be Paul Jennings. Our abolitionist in profile is just where we highlight an abolitionist, usually from the pre-1865 slavery era. And so tonight we want to talk about Paul Jennings, who was born in 1799, transitioned in 1874. He was held in bondage by President James Madison. Otis, I had to mute you, bro, because I get feedback off your line, and it kind of throws me off. But Paul Jennings, born again in 1799, passed in 1874. He was held in slavery by President James Madison. during and after his White House years. After securing his freedom in 1845, how he secured his freedom is he purchased it from Mrs. Madison after James Madison hopefully went to hell. But Jennings published the first White House memoir. So it wasn't the president, it wasn't the first lady that published the first White House memoir. No, it was a victim of slavery, a man by the name of Paul Jennings. And his book was called A Colored Man's Reminiscences of James Madison. And it has been described as a singular document in the history of slavery and the early American Republic. Jennings also played a lead role in planning the Pearl Incident, which has been described as the largest recorded escape attempt by people from enslavement in U.S. history. So I will post this to New Abolitionist Radio's Facebook page, where you can read about Paul Jennings and hopefully gain some inspiration from him. So New Abolitionist Radio salutes Paul Jennings.
Salute.
All right, we got Max back.
Yes,
got a caller from
my internet just shut off for a moment and I had to restart my router. Sorry about that, Scotty.
Oh, that happens to me from time to time. We got a caller from the New York area, 646. Did you have some quick comments for us? We're not able to hear you. Okay, Max?
Yes, Scotty, there was so much I wanted to cover today, but there's always more than we can ever cover. I'll post a lot of this stuff on New Abolitionist Radio so people can keep up to date on what's going on. And I know we only have time now for our regularly scheduled segments. But one of the most important ones I wanted to point out that you should read is the story on how 1.2 million people ended up with arrest warrants in New York, and then multiply that times 50 states across the union, and you'll start understanding where we're at this point in time. Our next segment, which will be our rider of the 21st Century Underground Railroad, we will be recognizing William Barnhouse today, who became the 350th person exonerated through DNA evidence. 350. Wow. May 10th, 2017, a judge today granted a motion by the Delaware County Prosecutor's Office to dismiss the 1992 rape charges against William Barnhouse based on new DNA evidence proving Barnhouse's innocence of the crime. With Delaware County prosecuting attorney Jeffrey Arnold's consent, the Innocence Project and the Wrongful Conviction Clinic at Indiana University McKinney persuaded a Delaware County court to reverse Barnhouse's conviction on March 8, 2017, based on this new evidence. Further proceedings in the case were scheduled for May. Arnold's decision to dismiss the indictment against Barnhouse, who was dealt his entire life with serious mental health conditions, ends his 25-year struggle for justice. And we here at New Abolitionist Radio say salute and welcome to freedom, Brother William Barnhouse.
Welcome to freedom, Mr. Barnhouse.
Indeed, man. 25 years with mental health conditions, and you've been wrongly accused of rape. And we know how these things go. They ship these rape kits in a closet somewhere and don't even allow attorneys to view them or find them, to test them. There's a lot of those rape kits out there right now with people petitioning to try to get them tested for DNA evidence. It's a terrible way to spend 25 years where everybody thinks you're a rapist and you never were. So that is our rider of the 21st Century Underground Railroad, and as soon as possible, I'll get that up on New Abolitionist Radio. I'll conclude our regular segments with our last, which will be our History of Rebellion, and today we remember the Combahee River Raid of June 2nd, 1863. Scotty, would you like to read some of that, or you want me to just continue?
You can continue.
Okay. On June 2nd, 1863, Harriet Tubman, under the command of Union Colonel James Montgomery, led 150 black Union soldiers in the Combahee River Raid. Tubman often referred to as the Moses of her people, was a former slave who had fled to freedom in 1849. Tubman had been working for years to bring slaves from the South to the North through the Underground Railroad. However, this was the first time that she was asked to work on a major Union military operation. On the night of June 2nd, 3 federal gunboats set sail from Beaufort, South Carolina, up the Combahee River. And I've been to that river, by the way. Tubman had gained vital information about the location of rebel torpedoes planted along the river from slaves who were willing to trade information for freedom. Because of this information, Tubman was able to steer the Union ships away from any danger. She led the ships to specific spots along the shore where fugitive slaves were hiding and waiting to be rescued. At first, many of the slaves were frightened by the Union soldiers' presence, but Tubman was able to talk them and convince them to come aboard. As Lincoln's gunboats traveled upriver, more slaves were rescued, and eventually 750 boarded the vessels. The boats, however, had a specific military mission. They carried Union troops who came on shore and succeeded in destroying several influential South Carolina estates owned by leading secessionists, including the plantations of the Haywards, the Middletons, and the Lowndes family. Many of the Union soldiers who took part in the raid were former slaves who saw the burning and pillaging of these estates as an opportunity to enact revenge on the master class. By the time Confederate forces learned of the raid, much of the damage had been done, and hundreds of slaves slipped away to freedom. A company of Confederate troops was sent to challenge the raiders. They were not successful and managed to stop only one slave from escaping to gunboats. Confederate artillery proved almost as ineffective since none of the rounds they fired hit any of the gunboats. Harriet Tubman was the only woman known to have led a military operation during the American Civil War. Thanks in great part to the intelligence she provided, the Union boats escaped unharmed, and the raid was a major military and psychological blow to the Confederate cause. And we here at New Abolitionists remember the Combahee River Raid of June 2nd, 1863.
Salute.
Well, Scotty Reid, man, it's been a powerful program, and I know we didn't get all the news that we want to get out there, but, we'll be around a while, and we've been around a while, so we'll have plenty of time to tell it. The stories keep changing, but the narrative is always the same.
Well, we got time for just one more story, and we mentioned David Kulma earlier. It is very important that if you live in the 5th District of South Carolina?
Yes, 5th District of South Carolina.
And that would be what areas, Max?
That is Rock Hill.
Okay.
Rock Hill area.
Well, you have an abolitionist candidate that you can vote for. The election is on the 20th, so we're just 13 days away from that election. And so I want to play this video of David Kulma you can also find him online. I believe his website, I've actually linked to it in the program description. I can't recall. I think it's davidkulma.com. I'm not sure, but I have linked to it. But he's running for Congress, and this is him speaking on the issue of slavery.
Good morning. It's 13 days until the election. And it's been a couple days since I made one of these live ones, so today I wanted to make sure I mentioned that, just obviously, I'm David Kulma. I'm running for Congress. Election's on June 20th. I'm the Green Party candidate, and so what I'm going to tell you about is an event that's on Saturday at our Rock Hill campaign office. And then I'm going to ask you to give us money and help us volunteer. One of the issues I'm running on is affordable housing for people making $20 an hour or less in this country. And that means subsidizing people who make, people who spend more than 30% of their income on housing and utilities. That's what the Department of Housing and Urban Development says that you are cost burned if you're spending more than 30% of your income on housing and utilities, so your rent or whatever. That means that a lot of people are not buying like food or Christmas presents for their kids, or having to kind of not pay their electricity bills or sorts of things, and which is really hurting a lot of people. And we need to do something about that. And so one of those things is subsidizing people who don't make very much. If you look in the actually, I won't say that next part. It's not really important at this moment. Then the other part is we want to build affordable, sustainable housing, so we can actually have a housing stock that people, based on their current incomes, can actually afford, and so they can have a sustainable life on their income. Of course, we want to raise people's incomes. $15 an hour, so one of those things is building tiny houses. There's a guy here in Rock Hill named Dale Dove, who is the founder of the crisis center in town, which is called Renew Our Community, ROC. And he started this new venture of his recently, in the past year or so, called Renew Housing. And he's built a little tiny house on wheels to go show it around, and they've been building some other ones to see how quickly they can do so. And so Dale is going to be at our campaign office on Saturday. That's the 10th, and he's going to talk with us about housing and his project, and so from 3:00 there'll be pizza near the end. If you'd like to come, our campaign office is 109 Hampton Street in Rock Hill, and Dale will have the tiny house he built in the parking lot that's just right across the street from us, so you can come see it and look around. It's really very nice, and you can get an idea of what kind of things people are doing here in South Carolina to help those who need and help and empower those who need, to find a sustainable way to live with their housing. So that's on Saturday, June 10th, at 3:00 at our Rock Hill campaign office. Come meet Dale and me and eat some pizza. That's the housing thing. So then we've got an event on the Facebook page, which basically is running from now, or a few days ago, until the election. So we need your volunteer help to help us canvass in the community to get the word out about our campaign and the events that we're having. So after that one next Saturday, the weekend following, we have 2 more on Saturday and Sunday. One's about education, the other is about ending slavery in our prisons. So those should be the one we did on Saturday with David. So sorry about that. The one we had with David Keeley last weekend went really well, and learned a lot about healthcare and ate some pizza with a few people. So I hope you can come out. So we need volunteers. So however you can do so, let us know, and we can get you some literature, or we can have you call people, or I'm not really sure. Greg will get back to you. So finally, we need to. We're still hopefully raising money for. We've been raising some more recently, apparently. Raising money to be able to afford to mail as much direct mail to as many people as possible, to let people know about our campaign here, to really change and help people in this very large area of South Carolina, all 11 counties of it. So every dollar you give can help us reach 4 more voters. So that's so you want to go to votekulma.org/ sorry about that. So you're going to go to votekulma.org/donate, and you can donate with our PayPal. There's a crowd pack campaign. Both of those are on.
That's the end of that video, Max. And you did hear him mention the event in about 2 weeks. Is it, Max? On the 18th. I believe that's on a Sunday. Yeah, Max, go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. I just said the 18th. Yes.
Okay, and if you could just quickly tell us what will be happening that day.
It's a campaign rally for David Kulma, his last effort in trying to get enough votes to be able to get people to put him into office as a state congressman and an abolitionist state congressman. So you and I will be there trying to explain how modern-day slavery works to an audience full of people who really don't understand it at all. And hopefully that will move them into voting for David, because he's about doing something about this very serious and real current problem.
Well, Max, I guess we could go ahead and give our final comments. I want to thank our guest, Sister Laila, for her abolitionist work out there and all the different callers who called in to share their knowledge and wisdom on this issue and the field reports that we have gotten about the resistance, the very real resistance. This isn't theoretical. This isn't, something that doesn't have boots on the ground. And so I'm just very inspired to be a part of this large and growing movement.
Yes, sir. And I echo your sentiments and also send a shout out to Tag and SJ who called in to share, and Otis as well. Appreciate you guys as always, and all the people who have been listening to us here now 52 weeks a year for the past 5 years as we talk about one topic and one topic only: modern day slavery and human trafficking. Just going to remind you that as we speak, and this is for those abolitionists who are already certain in what they're doing and understand what's happening, keep your eyes on the Convention of States. We need to be a part of that. It is so crucial and important, and if you don't understand it, then you need to start looking in deeper. Call me. I'll tell you. I'll explain it. There's videos on it. But the Convention of States could be our doorway into the change we've been looking for, or it could be an opportunity for white racist supremacists to open up the Constitution for reinterpretation. And I'm going to end like this. I know what it's like to be completely wrong, to believe nothing but lies, to be so wrong it costs people their lives. For some of my wrongs, I can never make amends, but I can make a difference in how things turn out in the end. I may not know everything, but I do know one thing which resides behind the curtain. The past is already done, and the future remains uncertain. Change can start right now and become day one in a new way to live, or it could be just a continuation of things you never did. Remember, abolition is a reason for a revolution, so we can finally know peace. Peace.
Rise up, 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 rise up. Showtime. Just lift your eyes up. Let your wise rise up, see the signs of the times. If it's time, rise up, rise up. When death and hell dwell among all God's people, when those we chose and trusted have become completely corrupted and inherently evil, when the feast that feeds you starves our father's children, when snuff, porn, and pedo forms begin to get top billing, rise up. When famine claims millions, when justice gives blind eyes to billions, when the Lord's anger is no longer